Hey everyone, how's it going? Um, I don't have an intro, do I? Right, okay. Hey everyone, how's it going? I'm Luke Warner, and these are my weekly comic book reviews. They will be coming at you probably every Friday or Saturday, depending on how many books I have to review. Only 4 today, that's why it's coming at you the day after my full video, because I read my comments really quickly. For some reason, I just do. Plus all of these were generally good, so I found it really difficult to rank them. But weirdly, the way that I ranked them still ended up being alphabetical order. Weirdly. But before I get into that, I'd like to remind you to please hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, hit notifications, share this video with family and friends, anyone that you think might like this kind of content, anyone that wants to see my ugly mug in their subscription feed. But without further ado, let's get this train wreck rolling. Starting with Hunt for Wolverine, the Adamantium Agenda. And remember when I said in yesterday's video, in the haul video, that this was probably my favourite of the 3 so far that I've been reading. It's dropped to the bottom just because of this one issue, and that is because it does really take you out of the action of it. There's still action in it. There's definitely not all just talking heads like in Weapon Lost, but it does feel like there's very little tension. It does feel like everything's just played for a joke and played for a laugh. Like, they have this idea that all of the supervillains come together to bid on different things to do with the superhero community, and that idea could be done really well. They just play it off for a laugh. They have this guy who's selling the genetic codes of Daniela Cage, Luke Cage and Jessica Jones' daughter, and you could have the idea of Luke Cage just going completely apeshit and beating this guy to a pulp. They don't do that. They just sit by and everyone's like, oh, who cares, who's that? No, give me a real superhero's DNA. And there's a part in the middle of the book where Peter Parker and Tony Stark are just talking about a 1938 computer. Thank goodness the second half just ramps up, because we get the introduction of Mr. Sinister, who looks very much like Morlun from Spider-Man. And I wonder if Spider-Man's going to make that joke in the future of the series. Probably not. But he makes a leak in this submarine that they're on, and they use Luke Cage to plug the leak, which I just thought was hilarious. And yeah, it does look like the next issue or next few issues because there's only 2 left. It does look like they're going to be very, very epic. But this issue did definitely disappoint me quite a bit, because I really enjoyed the last issue. I was hoping to enjoy that, and I just didn't really. I enjoyed parts of it, I just didn't enjoy the whole thing. Luckily the rest of the books were really good, and it was really hard to decide the way I would rank them. So I just thought alphabetical order is the way to do it. So next up is Hawkman, number 1. My first DC comic in a long time. I think the last time I picked up a DC comic was the Batman Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles crossover, the first one, not the newest one, the first one. And yeah, this was amazing. This was really good. First of all, I love Brian Hitch's artwork, and the way that he draws Hawkman is so, just that opening page alone is so beautiful. I just love Brian Hitch's artwork. So the story is Hawkman is looking for this ancient artifact so that he can look into his own past and look into his own past lives. But this artifact is being protected by someone called Uak Khan, I think. Uak Kung. And he's basically just a giant, like, King Kong-esque creature. And there's this chase sequence that's interspersed with a flashback where it's kind of introducing the idea that Hawkman has had previous lives, and there is this family that will help Hawkman because previous ancestors were helped by Hawkman, so it's the family's duty to help Hawkman. So we have this fight against Uak Kong and Hawkman. The fight is very, like, action-packed, very epic, and we have this in a monologue all the way through it, where Hawkman is very apprehensive to kill this thing. Because he says, I get no joy from destroying history. Sometimes I'm forced to choose to shatter one past to preserve another. And so by the end of the issue, he finds Madame Xanadu, who is another character that I know next to nothing about. So she kind of, and the writer Robert Venditti kind of uses this to give the reader a brief run through what Hawkman basically is. The fact that he's lived a plethora of past lives, that he's practically immortal, and they give you a reason why. It's that there is this slaughter that is coming to Earth from these, like, what look like the Omega Titans, which just which just ended that storyline in No Justice. And we see that Hawkman doesn't know what he's fighting against, and he doesn't know how to fight it. So it's going to be interesting to see how this story arc shapes up, and what exactly Hawkman will fight in the coming issues. And I also want to know if this is an ongoing or a mini as well, because it doesn't say issue 1 of 6. So I don't know. Is this going to be an ongoing, and how many issues is it going to go on for? Because I can kind of see it being like Mr. Miracle, where it's going to be like just like 10 or 12 issues. Yeah. I really enjoyed Hawkman #1. Thor #1 is a comic I've heard a lot of bad things about. I was very apprehensive to start reading. First off, I love that more Marvel comics are doing what DC does, and they're using a different, more cardboardy paper for the cover. It feels like it just makes the comic feel like more quality, more care has been put into it. And yeah, I'm someone that's very apprehensive to this kind of painterly art style that Mike Delmundo has. I didn't really like the art style in that last issue of Doctor Strange before the new #1, but the cover itself is amazing. The first page just kind of put me off a bit, and I think it's the way that Mike Delmundo draws mouths that puts me off. But when he draws like a big bulky figure, like the Juggernaut who shows up, he draws the Juggernaut very well and very imposingly. But it's just the way he draws mouths is very off-putting. Yeah, I really enjoyed this. I heard a lot of bad things about it. Heard that he basically just goes on about Jane Foster for most of it. That's a lie. That doesn't happen. He doesn't go on about Jane Foster for nearly as much time as what some people say he does. Jane Foster is in the book, but she definitely does not take center stage. She's definitely not mentioned like throughout the whole of the story. Yeah, the first half is basically, we start off with Thor in the Temple of Cyttorak, trying to escape the legions of Cyttorak, and he gets in a fight with Juggernaut. He wins, but not without destroying about 100 hammers in the process, because none of these hammers have been designed to be as strong as Mjolnir was, and I don't understand why they've been so reluctant to give him Stormbreaker, because that's what he has in the movies. You want to make everything else like the movies? Give Thor Stormbreaker. It'd be a lot more epic. Just see him with Stormbreaker just going into the air. But yeah, we do see quite a lot of epic panels and shots, and then when we get back to Asgard, we see that everything has gone to shit, basically. The trolls have to go to Asgard because their realm has been invaded by Malekith. Heimdall, he has lost his eyes, he can't see, so the Rainbow Bridge doesn't work. Odin and Freya aren't talking. The relationship between Loki and Thor is at the worst it's been, and everyone is mourning the loss of Jane Foster as the Lady Thor. And then we pick up to a bar, and we see Rosalind, who was in a previous Hercules run, who owns like her own tavern, which I think she owns her own like tavern now, or her own apartment complex where she is letting all these mythical creatures stay on Midgard. And Thor ends up meeting with Jane Foster here, and that's what I mean by him not being able to draw mouths all that well. It's very distracting. But yeah, when you get an action sequence, it looks very nice. And we see Jane Foster is quite infatuated by this hammer, and she wants to touch it, but she can't until she's cancer-free, which kind of alludes to the fact that, hey, Jane Foster Thor is going to be coming back soon, at some point, probably before Jason Aaron leaves the book. Which means we're probably going to have 2 Thors running around, unless if they plan on making Thor Odin's son unworthy again, which is just stupid. I don't know why they would do that. But yeah, when we get panels like that, which is like a lot better. But the one problem that I do have with this is every time that it leads into a fight, they have a shot which opens a fight, but they don't show the full fight. They just have like Thor hitting someone, and then it's alluded to that he won. And it's shown that Thor is living on this barge, and none other than Loki is there. And they have this little fight, and it's more like Thor just beating up Loki whilst Loki's trying to say, "No, I'm here to help." And Loki takes Thor himself and Thori, the Hellhound, to Niflheim, where they meet up with Balder the Brave, the King of Hell, and Scourge, whilst they're on this giant monster truck. So that's really cool. And then we get this backup story where we have old King Thor fighting a shark in space with his 3 daughters. They send away the shark, and old King Thor goes back down to Earth, where he sees Jane Foster on her deathbed. He's trying to comfort her, basically saying, "No, I can give you one stretch of life." Jane Foster says no, she's not having any of it, and she dies. And it's quite a heartwarming scene. They have a whole ceremony for her, and then Thor and old King Thor is is told, look, something big is about to happen. You need to find this threat because the stars are going missing from the sky. You need to find out whatever's doing this, and you need to stop it before it comes here. And Thor goes into space and finds nothing but death. And he's basically speaking about how he's a fool. And then he gets hit by a burst of fire. And he basically says, what? It cannot be. And we think, what, fire is his Human Torch? And we turn the page and it's Wolverine, and it's Old Man Wolverine imbued with the Phoenix Force. And I cannot wait for the next issue. Like, that cliffhanger there, like, that's not going to be concluded until, or continued until Thor issue 5. And I'm fine with that. They did the same thing in Deadpool. They did the same thing in Star Wars. They're doing the same thing in this. And I'm a fan of that storytelling, where they have a story arc, and then they have like a one-off issue that's part of a bigger story arc that's like told in between the story arcs. That is actually a really good idea, and they need to do that more. Like, not with every book, but with like, especially with books like Thor, where you can tell like more, where you can tell those kind of stories. And I'm kind of more interested in the backup story with Old King Thor than I am the main story. But it does seem like they've turned Thor more into how he acts in the Marvel Cinematic Universe, which is why I thought they should have given him Stormbreaker. But the whole idea of having 100 hammers and then just throwing away that idea for basically saying, no, he used all of them in the first fight with Juggernaut. It's like, yeah, Juggernaut may be more powerful, but he's not that powerful. And his helmet isn't made of adamantium. It's made of, I don't know what it's made of, but it's not adamantium. Oh dear. And was it any surprise that Venom made it to my pick of the week? Again, the second issue in a row that's made it to my pick of the week. I think issue 3 might as well, because this story arc is just something else. It really is. It reminds me of like the Marvel comics of old, where like the early 2000 comic books, like when J. Michael Straczynski was on Spider-Man, when Kevin Smith was on Daredevil. That's what this reminds me of, because it is that kind of storytelling. It's kind of deconstructing the hero and making him fight a threat that he can't just beat. And they're actually giving Venom his own villain. And sure, he may not be the most character-driven villain. Like, it works for Venom. Like, Venom's a symbiote. Symbiotes come from a planet. They obviously have a religion. Why not have Venom fight his god? Why not have Venom fight the literal god of all symbiotes, the creator of the symbiotes? Like, that just makes sense to me. Although it doesn't make sense that that symbiotes from their homeworld are born with a choice, even though the god of symbiotes is inherently evil. That doesn't really make sense. But hey, retcons. It's a comic book. Don't think about it too much. We start off exactly where the last issue left off, with Eddie Brock with a gaping hole in his chest. And this is basically where the comic brings you up to speed on who Eddie Brock is and his origins while the symbiote is healing him. And then we go back to this, character of Rex Tillerson, and he gets approached by Venom, who is angry because Rex sent him to a death trap, basically, and Rex didn't know that, so he's kind of shocked, and then Venom starts turning into this other creature with like the circle around his head, but with a mixture of self-control and a well-placed fireplace. He can get the symbiote off of him, and he's fine. And we see on the news that this dragon thing, which is basically the god of the symbiotes, is attacking New York City. And Eddie Brock's like, look, that's the god of the symbiotes. I'm a symbiote. I gotta go fight that thing. And we get a little bit of backstory on Rex Tillerson, and that the whole reason why he's mixed up with the symbiotes is to do with Project Rebirth, and apparently the symbiote that he was connected to gave him a little bit of a vision towards the god of all symbiotes, and basically showed him that this symbiote is coming, and it's going to kill everything. And then we get a giant double-page spread of this symbiote dragon, which is basically the god of symbiotes. And it looks, let's just say it's going to be one hell of a fight when Venom comes face to face with this. And we get that kind of Batman moment where Rex is talking to him, basically warning him not to go, but he's already gone. And we have this inner monologue of Eddie saying, well, everything dies one day. This thing is meant to kill us. So why are we waiting around to die? That day is coming. Let it come. And behind him is Miles Morales, swinging in to save the day. And it looks like in the next issue, they're going to, the Miles Morales and Venom are going to clash. So that's going to be interesting. But it does seem a lot like, unless if the cover is fake news, which it probably will be, it does seem like that doesn't really need, they don't really need to fight, because it's a bit more like filler, and just writing for the trade, which is something that I hate in comics. If you're going to write a story, write a story. If you're going to write a story that lasts 6 issues, make sure that you have a story that lasts 6 issues. Don't write a story that's meant to be 4 issues and pad it just so that it can be turned into a trade. If you know what I mean. But, you know, who am I to judge? I only read the comments. I don't write them. I can't write them. But yeah, those are all the books that I read this week. Let me know in the comments below what you read this week, and if you read the same books that I did, let me know what you thought of them. I will see you guys next Thursday, possibly before, probably not. But until then, to all are one. Peace.